You are the first people to sit in these seats in this auditorium. This is the auditorium you always loved, made better for today. Those of us who are tall can, for the first time, not feel like a pretzel. And there are fewer obstructed views, and there are not springs sticking you in your backside, which was an old problem with this auditorium. I'm Nanette Macy-Jones, the executive director of the museum, and I welcome you all to Creativity in Your Life. You can see that we are a work under, in process and progress. We've got a lot of work still to do, but this was we wanted this to be the inaugural event in the new Center for Creativity, which is the heart of the renovated 1931 historic building, which is going to be named the Elizabeth M. and Richard M. Ross Building. So when you come to the museum, you'll be coming to the Ross Building, and this is the new Cardinal Auditorium. We don't have all of our signage up, but we really thank our friends at Cardinal Health for this lovely auditorium. I had lots of things to say, and I'm going to say almost none of them because it took us lots of time to get into this auditorium. I'm preaching to the choir here about why creativity is important in your life. The museum has embraced that as a central sort of value for us in enhancing and nurturing people's creativity. We think it's a central part of all of our lives as human beings and the way that America will transform itself as a nation going forward in every aspect of the society. The problem with creativity for the way we're taught as kids is that we think it's, we have a really narrow definition of it, and we think it's about somebody else. It's about an artist or a musician. It's not me, it's somebody else. And we say, oh, that person's really creative. Creativity, we have an incredible capacity of creativity, each one of us when we come on this planet, and we need to nurture it. We need to grow it, not just in children, but in every adult in this room. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. So we are getting started. I had a couple of housekeeping things. Yes, the restrooms in this part of the building work. So if you are not familiar with us, there are restrooms off of the lobby, but there are also restrooms off of this South Hall here, and much better identified with signage that you can see. And we have lots of great amenities in this building that I'm not going to be talking to you about, because what I want to do is get Artie Isaac up here, who is our co-presenter of this event today. He's sort of our creativity guru. Where is Artie? Where did he go? Is he in the dark? He's here. Artie's going to lead us, and then we're going to have Liz Lesner and Pete Scantlin, Pete Scantlin's on our board. We're going to talk about creativity in business, right? I know he's doing faces behind me, isn't he? And then we're going to have the lunch break. There's going to be a book signing at the end of the day after Michael Chabon. I want to tell you that. And here's this. The Creativity Summit is supported by a national competitive grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Sciences, IMLS, which is a big national grant we got. It's also all the work at the museum. You could do the... We could dance. Columbus Foundation. All of our work is supported by the Columbus Foundation, the Greater Columbus Arts Council, nationwide, the Ohio Arts Council, and the Thrive in 5 initiative. So this sponsored, it's presented by the museum and Artie. And the center, the last thing I want to tell you is the center is the brainchild of the education department, the Columbus Museum of Art, who are probably hanging back out in the hall. But we would not be here without their creativity and their imagination. And do you want me to do your bio? He's really famous. Okay, if you don't know who he is, you've been living under a rock. We know Artie long ago. He was on our board. We all knew him when he was young. And Isaac, come back here. And now he is teaching, he's acting, and he really is one of the people in this city that is driving forward at our universities and in every venue possible the idea of creativity and imagination. Mr. Isaacs.
Thank you so much, Nanette. Thank you. Nanette is one of those people in our lives who constantly challenges us and spurs us to greater expansion and of our thinking and our hearts and our souls. I'm so grateful to Nanette, the whole team, Cindy and Jeff, who I worked with most closely, but there's a large group of people here who have brought you everything from the programming today to this wonderful, it's not new car smell, it's new auditorium smell. You know, there's nothing quite like sitting down in your new auditorium and finding out just where all the buttons are and how it works. And we've done that since 11 o'clock last night, and we're ready to go. So today I'm to talk for the first hour or so about brain work. How does the brain work? What can we do? I think this is the promise I made. 7 ways to increase personal ingenuity and creativity, ways to keep the mind sharp, and ways to combat long-term degeneration of mental capability. I'm not really sure what I was thinking when I offered to do this. I don't know a lot about how the brain works. I know I brought one. It's here somewhere. But I do recall Googling Google Images and finding brain if I could. And this is what I found. All the pictures of brains are, the brain is of all my favorite organs, one of the least attractive. It always looks gray and sort of squiggly, and you really don't want to play with it. And so I found sweetbreads, which are brains, and seems like if it's breaded and you put a little of this olive reduction next to it, that might be one way to keep your mind sharp. And walnuts. We'll just move on. So as I was thinking how little I really know about how the brain works, and my wife, Lisa, is a nurse practitioner, and she says there is no mind. We think of the mind out here, like this thought bubble. There isn't. Everything has its reality in a physical manifestation, right? It's all happening in here. We don't like to think of it that way. We like to think of our heart over here and our soul up there and our mind in this thought bubble, but it all has its reality in a physical manifestation. So we want to try to figure out how can we spark our thinking? How can we spark the way we think and operate this brain? So I asked this question. I went back for my 25th college reunion, and I had an opportunity to hear a neuroscientist, a neurosurgeon from the Yale Medical School talk about the brain and how it works. At the very end, he said, open it up, big law school auditorium, any questions? And of course, I have a question. I asked this question, it's 3 years ago when I got on this kick. What can we do to keep our minds sharp, I asked. And since I had the microphone, I said, that's easy, right? Because I don't want a lot of work, and free, if that's at all possible, and can be done in 5 minutes a day. Well, the audience there that was my age or older generally, they were happy to see this because this was the question they wanted to answer too. And that's what we're going to try to do today. We're going to try to explore basic, fundamental ways of keeping ourselves sharp. What do we do? A disclaimer. There is nothing to be said today that's going to be surprising, particularly. I hope it's fun. I hope it might kickstart you into something new. That would be great. But there's no deeper meaning. I'm sorry. The deeper meaning is on the walls all over the museum. I'm just going to tell you a few commonsensical ideas that I think will bring you to action. I hope it will. What the neuroscientist said in response to this question was, well, you're doing it now. This is it. You're engaging your mind. You're going to a lecture on how the brain works. That's a really good start if you want your brain to work. And that's what I mean when I say there's not going to be a lot of surprises here. How do you get your brain to work? You work your brain. Let's talk about that just for a second. A lot of people say that they're not creative. My students at Ohio, I teach creativity at the Fisher College of Business at The Ohio State University. I like to think of myself as the liberal arts division of the business school. And years ago, I said, I'd like to be the liberal arts division of the business school. And they said, great, when we want a liberal arts division, we'll call you. But now there is an understanding that we need whole humans to be running our businesses and managing our enterprises. But people come to me and they say, well, I don't think I'm creative. And I have to ask, and I'll ask you now too, if that's something that maybe a thought that you harbor. I may want you, this light is right on you. Oh, thank you, that was perfect. Thank you very much. That concludes my formal presentation, thank you. So when people say, I don't think I'm creative, I have to ask, how hard are you trying? We all know what it takes to be fit, physically fit. We know we've got to do things like go to the gym and lift weights and eat right, and we can't smoke, and we can't drink too much, and we have to get enough sleep. We know the things we have to do to be physically fit. We don't do them all the time, and when we ache or we know what's happened, we cheated a little bit. Being creative takes the same diligence and work, except you don't have to shower afterwards. But it takes about the same amount of time and takes a little bit of training, a schedule for how you're going to train yourself to be fit. And I find it surprising that people would never imagine, those who would not work on their creativity and imagine a spontaneous moment of ingenuity are like people who wouldn't work out and expect a spontaneous moment of fitness. I'm fit now. That doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way, right? We know that. This is also true. We have to spend time on it. And if we say to ourselves, I don't think I'm creative, two answers. How hard are you trying? And remember when you were 12. You were creative. You were creative in that you bounced out of bed and you grabbed that sandwich and you hopped on the bike and you climbed that tree. You had something you wanted to get done. Well, something happened. Something got in the way. I don't particularly teach creativity at Ohio State. I'm careful, hopefully, not to state it that way. Because people, when I asked for advice on how to teach it, they said, well, they asked me a question, can you teach creativity? And when people ask that question, what they're really suggesting is the answer, which is no. Right? That's their helpful response. But I have found that, well, I'll ask it this way. Are there people I could put next to you and priorities I could give you, resources I could give you or deny you, priorities I could place in front of you that would make you less creative? Well, that's life. What I do is teach people how not to surround themselves with those other people, how not to deny themselves those resources or drown in those priorities or put themselves in those places that are not inspiring, and we return naturally to a childlike creativity. Not unlike James Howard Kunstler explains New Urbanism. If you make the right choices about town planning, we return to natural density and pedestrian-friendly areas. We seek to return to our creativity, and here are some ways we might do that. But first, an update about the miners. They are still all above ground. And what an amazing experience, I think, for all of us. You know, I don't watch TV, but I got onto my internet that night and man, I was transfixed by the wonder of all this, by everything about it. And I thought, they went deep into the ground, and they brought back 33 courageous people, and they dug out copper and gold, and they found the world's greatest metaphor for creativity. That's what they brought back. They brought back this metaphor that we are all, every morning as we wake up, at the bottom of this pit. As we wake up and try and figure out, what time is it? Where are my shoes? What am I to do today? What's the plan for today? We are in this pit. We have to look for the capsule. I don't think we have one installed in this stage for me. Right? I'd be climbing in about now and moving up to be rescued. We have to find what is our capsule. Into what reality do we want to be rescued? Well, we have to do our own rescuing, our own winching. But to think about this, there is a place, there is a challenge, there is the suit we have to wear. Think truly. I don't know about you, but I wear a costume. And I know when it goes on, I know who I'm going to be as best I can. I like this as a metaphor because I see it as a journey. And I see it as a daily journey, or maybe like creation, it's with every blink of the eye. Every time we blink our eyes, it's a whole new reality. What are we going to do now before that next blink? Time's wasting. So we wake up. We wake up, and the first idea here is maybe a game changer, a mind changer for you. I want to give you a few new beliefs as well as a few actual things to do. But one belief is, how do we wake up? How many people here wake up without an alarm clock? Right? Look at those people. Thank you. Those are people that either want to get up or just can't sleep. Right? I mean, Could be a cry for help. I don't know what that was, but it was. But they get, and the rest of you use an alarm. And either way is a fine way to get up. But just to get up, having had enough sleep is really important to us. Sleep is more than just because we're tired. It's some say hardwired into us as a safety mechanism. Because long ago, those of us that were awake 24 hours a day got eaten by the tiger at night. So sleep drove us up into the tree or into the cave, and it kept us safe. And we evolved as the ones who survived. The ones who were always awake got eaten. So just file that away is really not helpful, but all loving. So when we wake up, what is that first thought in our minds? What is the first thing we want to feel when we wake up? I would recommend that as you wake up, call it a blessing, call it a mantra, call it a reminder, put it on a Post-it note on the side of your clock. This is going to be a great day. This is going to be a great day. It's very easy to wake up thinking, this is going to be a difficult day. I'm in the chamber, way down here, and the capsule's not ready, and I'm not, and there's too much work to do. It's too easy to get beleaguered, and I think it's important with that first moment, reaching for that bright blue clock, to say to ourselves, this is going to be a great day, and maybe a day that's better than yesterday, and no matter what our troubles, no matter what our real challenges, and I know you have them, I have them, we all have them, our challenges are the dream of the rest of the world. These miners lifted back onto earth and back into their poverty. Welcome home. Welcome home. We are sitting in a climate-controlled, beautifully appointed, fine auditorium talking about creativity. I don't know what your tradition teaches you about heaven. Mine's vague on the subject. I think this might be it. I don't know what you're expecting. People walking around on clouds with little loops. I don't know what you're expecting, but this might be it. I hope you're happy. So I wake up, and the first thing I always do is look at Cindy Lazarus's Facebook page. Now, I might not be, sometimes when it's hard for me to remember when I hit the alarm clock, or actually I don't, when my wife wakes up and it's her alarm clock, I have trouble thinking this is going to be a great day. I'm thinking, why do I have to get up when you get up? But I'm not bitter, and this is not the time or place to be discussing that. So I go to Cindy Lazarus's Facebook page, which I did this morning. It was about 6:15, and about an hour ago, Cindy had already said, here's what's going on. And you might say, oh, why do people share things on Facebook? But that's a different class, a different lecture. We're not going to deal with that. What Cindy does is really helpful for me, and I presume for her too. We haven't talked about this. Cindy is apparently at Flying Horse Farms, right? She's constantly trying to figure out, how can I summarize my day in such a way that I can look at it and figure out, is this a day worth living? Am I getting enough done? Is this what I want to be doing? It's a real discipline. There are days she misses. There are days she takes vacation. And there's a day today she thanks Lisa Dolan. You can't read this, but Lisa Dolan's helping her out with the opening of these new facilities, which brings me to my next story. But why did I bring this up? I brought this up because whether you post it for the internet and all the world to see, or whether you simply write it for yourself, here's what I plan to get done today. It ought to be enough to make you happy. There ought to be something good that makes you happy. She mentions her friend Lisa Dolan, my friend too. I went to Lisa Dolan about 8 years ago because I wanted to teach something new, and Lisa had just been appointed the dean of the Graduate School of Business at Capital University. I asked her, it was the shortest conversation I've ever had. I said, I'd like to teach. She said, what? I said, creativity. She said, September 15th. We shook hands, and on my way to my car, I'm thinking to myself, I stopped halfway to the car. I thought, I've never taught creativity or read any books on creativity, and I really don't know how to teach creativity. So I went to Barnes & Noble. And I went to the front desk, and I said, I'm going to be teaching. This is the closest I could find online. I went to the front desk, and I said, I'd like to know how to teach creativity. Are there texts that people use? Oh, yes, there are 2 classic texts. Come this way. And we went right to the self-help aisle. Not a place I'd spent enough time, really. I'd always thought that self-help was for losers. But isn't that why we're here? So this is kind of awkward. What's wrong with self-help? All my students at Ohio State and at CCAD, where I teach a course in marketing, that is the very nature of self-help. A museum membership is a pure expression of self-help and community. And why not? So I started spending time in the self-help aisle, and I was shown two texts. One I will show you today. One there's not time, and that's fine. But the one they showed me to is called The Artist's Way. And The Artist's Way is a favorite book. Oh, but you don't have time to read The Artist's Way, do you now? You don't, because you're watching television. Let me just, if you don't have time to work on your creativity, I want to know if you're watching TV. If you're watching TV, then I want to know how much. And if you're watching more than, say, 45 minutes a day, then I think you do have time. If you're watching 3 or 4 hours a day, then you really lack imagination or ambition. You don't lack them. They're just sleeping. They're just sleeping, and they won't wake up without an alarm clock, right? It's your alarm clock. Turn off the TV for a while and start to engage in creating your own reality. And I think of Jackson Pollock when I think of drinking too much. I know that's one of my favorite artists, but I've seen the movie and you've seen the movie, and it's a troublesome story. And maybe this is unethical of me to say such a thing about somebody, but it's part of the package of Pollock. And we know that he painted landscapes and still lifes before this, so we knew before he did this, we knew he was already a real artist, and then he did this, and it became all the bigger. But the drinking, those who say I don't have time for my creativity and aren't painting this, I would ask, how much are you drinking? If you're having a drink a day, great. If that's not a problem for you, okay. But if you're having 2 or 3 drinks a day, we can find creativity and save you money. I mean, aren't we just medicating? Aren't we just medicating away time when we're watching TV or drinking too much? Aren't we just trying to kill time? Whether that's our intention. No, we think we're being social or connected to the world. But that's what we've been taught. I mean, I don't know what liquor's message is. I think it's, yeah, baby, let's go. But I know what television's message is, and you know what it is too. Especially if you're my age or older, the message of TV was said to us very clearly. Don't touch that dial. Don't change that channel. Don't change. TV's interest is in you sitting there, not getting up and getting and going and doing something. So know who's on your side. Society doesn't care if you sit for the rest of this day. Society doesn't care if you are self-actualized and make the most of your life. Society doesn't care. In this world, we simply want you to buy more. And you have to figure, well, what's that going to sound like to our grandkids when I'm lying down, they're putting the last IV in my arm, and I ask for the receipt so I can put it in the Quicken. And the kids wander up to me and they say, Zadie, what did you do? What were your people like? What was it like? We were a consumer society. I said, we measured ourselves based on our ability to consume. People measured each other's talents and abilities based on size of home and brand name on shirt. And those kids are going to do the backup. They're going to back up. And they're going to say, you're terrible. You're awful. That's how you defined yourself. You weren't a society of ethics or creativity or ingenuity or community. You were just consumers. That's awful. And they'll leave. We won't see them again. And we'll die noisy deaths. Are you having fun yet? We're trying to beat the rush. We're trying to live now so we don't regret later. Christopher Canyon, Jeanette and Christopher, I haven't seen them in years. Arts educators. Jeanette was our daughter's preschool art teacher, and Christopher came in as the artist in residence, and he told this wonderful story about creativity and about how when he was a youth, he had ceased to thrive, big strapping fellow now, but he'd ceased to thrive. They took him to Nationwide Children's Hospital. They found out nothing. They couldn't figure it out. Doctors try hard, but it's a creative exercise trying to match challenges. And this is a parent's nightmare. Well, he's a pretty nervous cat, as you might imagine. He lets me tell this story, by the way, just so you know. He's a nervous cat. and he's wondering, what am I to do? I can't sleep. And so he's a little boy, and he's walking around at night drawing on a scrap of paper with a stub of pencil the pictures of the cartoon characters in the wallpaper. And he's drawing them, and he's settling himself down that way. His parents noticed, and when the doctors at the end of the week said, "We're sorry, we don't know, good luck," when he got home, there was that wooden box with the colored pencils, the paper, and the erasers, and the book on how to draw. It was, probably Bob Ross, the guy with the big hair and the happy trees, right? And his point is, he was trained to make books with the late John Denver, working with John Denver at the time during life, Take Me Home, Country Road, and other books, Sunshine on My Shoulder, illustrated, beautiful, in all these different media. Great talent, but it was all learned. His point is, it was all learned. It wasn't natural. The work he did as a youth didn't show. There's never been a prodigy in visual art, except maybe Picasso, who showed up at the Madrid Academy of Art to apply, and they gave him the application, and there were 15 things you had to do in these different media and landscapes and still lifes and portraits, and he came back really fast, and they were very surprised. You're back already. Most people take years to do this, and it's good, but there's no one else. It's all learned. Color theory, composition, these are not natural. Perspective, that's taught over at the Columbus College of Art and Design, that's how it happens. We need to be taught these things. The punchline, his very passionate punchline is this: when we come home from school and we don't add well, we're drilled with flashcards. When we don't spell well, we're drilled with word lists. But when we don't draw, we're told, well, we're not creative. And that's not really accurate. All children are prodigies until told otherwise. Halloween is coming, and you have to ask, in what is truly one of the most gruesome holidays on the calendar, it is also, in this time of color in the trees, a holiday of creativity. And are we buying our masks or making them? Anybody here named Louis? Good. So there's this moment where little Louis, and you are little Louis, when little Louis comes home and he's taught these grand lessons by a well-meaning, all-loving parent who says, Louis, anything worth doing is worth doing well. We're scared, Louis, because your work is a little sloppy, and it's really, you might want to pay a little bit more attention. This was a highly functional belief, and given to me and given to you at a time when we needed it. Anything worth doing is worth doing well, but now is later. Now our work is not sloppy. Now we're experts in almost everything we do. And the question facing us is, how can we become more creative? That's why we're here. The only way to become more creative is to try new things, maybe try old things in new ways. But what happens when you do that? What happens when you try something new? What is a likely, immediate outcome? Failure. I have a new belief for you, Louis. Louis, anything worth doing is worth doing wrong a few times. Because if you do everything well and only things that you do well, you'll never do anything new. I meet my students at Ohio State. They're highly functional, but they're already blinded, trying to be specialists and experts, losing what the Zen master calls the beginner's mind. That beautiful moment of trying something for the first time and you say, this is crazy. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm getting feedback on my success or my failure, and it's fun. We need to reestablish the beginner's mind and do something new. Jim Carrey has the movie The Yes Man, and it's a funny and it's a silly movie, but there's a meaning to it as Hollywood likes to dish it out. And it comes down to this, that we say no far too often. And we need to know how to say yes more to what we're hearing. We became experts at saying no. Why? Louis? It's best to know when to stop, right? It's best to know when to cool it. It's best to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, Louis. And what does Louis learn how to do? He learns how to stop. He learns how to stop really beautifully. And stopping's good. Again, We need to stop and breathe, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but not to stop everything we're doing all the time. We are excellent, especially at work, at stopping things that might run awry. I wonder, and I have practiced in my own life at home, in business, and out in the community, certainly with students, what happens if I just say yes to almost everything I hear? Almost everything. Some things are bad ideas. Some things lead to lawsuits and prison time. And so, no. But we need to know that we say no far too often. Sometimes just a smile and a nod works really well, because that's the only way we can find out what's coming next. During the breakouts, I'll be running a more of a workshop on brainstorm practices, and we'll deal with saying yes a little bit more. But imagine if we said yes more often, what would happen? What would happen? It worked out for Jim Carrey. Don't let the fear of losing rob you of the joy of having. And if you've already lost, don't let the sorrow of losing rob you of the joy of having. We have so much. And yet we constantly look above us at someone who has more, and we think, oh, how awful is that? Keeping up with the Joneses. How awful is it to fear that I might lose everything I've worked for? More than I should be happy that I have everything I have. At the end of life, my wife teaches me, she says this a lot, all we have is our relationships, our friendships. That's all we have. We either outlive our money or our money outlives us. But all we really have at the end are the friendships, the relationships, the mentoring relationships that we've created. That's what we have. And to wake up every morning and to realize what a wealth of opportunity and delight this is. This is another belief I really want to reverse in so many of us, in myself too. I'm not cured. But the joy of having a laser pointer is better than the fear of losing my dignity with it. On to actual things you can do. The first one I'd like to recommend is memorization. In education, I know there are members of the Ohio Department of Education here, and a giant, wonderful relationship, collaboration, playing at the museum today, learning, meeting, wonderful, and I welcome you here. Large contingent, great. Thank you for what you do. In education, we got away from memorization. We decided it was rote learning, right, by definition. And that's not what we want. We want thinkers. Surprise, what's old is new. And memorization is actually very good for us, and it's good for our brains. It's a great exercise. Nobody really needs to bench press 50 pounds, and yet we do that to get ready for the other things we want to do physically. Similarly, we want to figure out how can we make our minds supple? How can we make the actual material self-healing? Memorization's a wonderful way to do this. You can do it while you take your walk. In the morning, you can recite to yourself. Best not to move your lips. Although, if you put a Bluetooth in your ear, they'll think you're a tycoon, and you just walk right past the neighbors. Works for me. I built a career on this. So this is the Canterbury Tales. This is the first page of the general prologue, and it's the first text I was required to memorize. Then I went through 25 years of adulthood not memorizing, and I started to act again on stage about 3 years ago. And the memorization that I've had to do for that has been incredibly helpful to me. I can feel a more active brain inside. As you feel muscles, it's as real as that. To memorize is great fun and self-entertainment easily. You have to find the right stuff. How do you find the right stuff? Whoops, that was scary. This is, if you go to Google Images and you look, take a class, this is the image that pops up. I think this class is now closed, but I liked that it was an art class. I liked for our day at the museum that it would be an art class. One of the great things we can do if we're looking for something to memorize is to find good content that's been considered by some faculty person somewhere. Someone's thought through this. What you want to learn, somebody has thought through in most cases. So take a drawing course over at CCAD, the programs here at the museum. You can do this. What's the one reason you don't want to do it? Go ahead. Failure. Louis. Right? I guarantee your failure. Your money back if you succeed. You will fail, but that's the fun of it. That's the beginner's mind. That's stepping up and doing it and then saying, well, I didn't expect that, and how wonderful that is. The first, even my talented artists at CCAD, I asked them, the finished piece of work, will you show me on this piece of work the first mark you made? Well, no, that's been covered up, or it's been erased, or it's long gone. Oh, so each piece of work starts with failure in some ways, something that has to be replaced or improved. And these are the talented artists of our world. Take a class. If you're over, I think, 60 at Ohio State University, you get to take classes for free. Take my class. That would be great. Free classes. What was your vision of heaven? I mean, really, what do you think it is? Eating bonbons? Sir Laurence Olivier is King Richard III. I'm taking a self-study class now in Richard III. I'm doing everything I can to learn about Richard III because my friend and mentor and teacher and director Ian Short is going to be in the Available Light Theater production next month of Richard III, the tragedy of Richard III. And I found my copy of it from high school, and it has my notes in the margins, so I know I was there before. But I had no memory whatsoever of this terrible man, this Richard of Gloucester. He's a bad man. And to read about him anew is to discover not only what we need to avoid in our politicians, as the king can show us, but what the traits we need to look for in ourselves. He's really just a human who's making some really terrible decisions. We can talk about this during the break. That's not our coverage. I point this out because what am I doing? I'm reading different copies of the text. I'm reading the same text, of course, in its original many times. It's not that hard to read. We think it is, but it isn't. It really is if you do it out loud in private. I'm getting all the movies. I'm watching Al Pacino in his strange version. I watched as much of this one as I could. But he's acting far too much for my to like. Look at the eyes. Elisa said he must have just finished doing this. She made me promise that I would do that for you. We need to find something to study. And I find that going to see Shakespeare, done by any theater company, is especially fun if I know what the hell's going on. So reading it a few times beforehand doesn't hurt. Joan Sutherland. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know much about Joan Sutherland. I'm really embarrassed to tell you the truth, which is that I knew nothing about Joan Sutherland until she died last week. Her death in the obituary was announced by a mezzo-soprano. Isn't that great? Was announced by her friend. I think it was Marilyn Horne, a mezzo-soprano. I thought, that's how I want my death announced, by a mezzo-soprano. Page 1 of the New York Times, and almost a full page of the jump, of the rest of the obituary. And in it revealed that from low G to high C, a completely consistent output. A completely consistent output. It's amazing, breathtaking. So why do I show this? I show this because I see this obituary, and I say to myself, after Richard III, I'm going to take a course in Joan Sutherland. I want to listen to her music. I want to find out what I've missed. It's not too late. We need to get there. There is no lack of things to study. In Chaim Potok's The Chosen, the classic tale of a boy in Brooklyn, the boy is taught that every year we are obliged, all of us are obliged to do two things: to choose a friend and to acquire a teacher. The acquiring a teacher is what we're talking about here. How to acquire a teacher? Well, we need to figure out what subject is it and where will we go. In the 1 o'clock session called Carry Forth, we'll deal with this directly for you, not just as a frontal presentation, but we'll work you through a worksheet to try to figure out, what do I want to learn? How am I going to do it? What are the tricks involved? The choose a friend is odd because we don't really think we choose friends. We think friends are just sort of given to us. We're stuck in elevators together or down in the chamber of the mind. But that's not necessarily true. And I think once a year, you ought to line up all your friends on paper and take the 10% that bring you down the most and fire them. You don't have to tell them. You'll just become a little bit less accessible. This sounds sad and soulless. I'm sorry. You can only have so many friends. One of my heroes says, I don't have a lot of friends, but the friends I have will tell you I'm the best friend they've ever had. That's the sort of relationship we want to have, I think, in this world, rather than a superficial. I mean, I have 4,000 friends on Facebook. Whoop-de-doo, right? The real trick is how many people know me and do I know? We need to choose our friends very methodically and carefully because that is terribly important. If people are bringing you down, it's time to get away from them and upgrade. This is the book I mentioned earlier, and we're going to zip through a couple of ideas that are presented in it. The Artist's Way. At the end of the day, I'll give you a list of books, and this is on it. This is the book, and Julia Cameron has this. If you're not ready for it, it looks like it was written in California, and you just think, oh, for goodness sakes, you know? Is that where they legalized pot? Wait, remind me. So if it reaches you at the right time, it is a perfect book for you, the same book. One of the assignments is to write 3 pages every morning in longhand. 2 cups of coffee is not a bad idea. It's difficult to do, so difficult for me because I was block printing all my life. I don't know why. I saw my father doing it at one point, and I thought, oh, I want to be a grown-up, and I'm going to block print. And I lost cursive. I forgot how to do it. So doing my morning pages, as Julia Cameron calls it, the 3 pages every morning, it took 45 minutes. So I took a home correspondence course from Zaner Bloser, one of our local companies, the creator of the Zanarian Handwriting Institute, and I learned how to do cursive. And now I can do it in 20 minutes. And breakfast is waiting, which is great. Critically important. Why? What's the punchline? Why do we do this? Why must it be in the morning? It's because we're all warming up our creative muscles every morning. And the people you meet at the coffee maker or the water cooler at work are just putting together their first words. They're just putting together their first thoughts. If you've done 3 pages of anything, doesn't matter what it is, drivel, doesn't matter. You've at least started to turn out the stuff like a Play-Doh form that pulls out that beginning of Play-Doh, it's all clumpy, but then the Play-Doh comes out smooth. That's what we're after. We just got to warm up. That's all we're looking for. There's a lot more to be learned by this assignment, and I will tell you that my MBAs and my undergraduate students in the business college, they can do this. They know plenty of suffering. They know how to write 3 pages every morning because the teacher told them to. I don't grade them by reading them. I would never want to read them. That would be an invasion of privacy, and it would ruin the assignment. They flip through it from across the room to show me written pages. It's the second challenge that they have trouble obeying, taking a time out. Not this time out that Cadbury makes, but the idea of taking 1 hour a week as an artist's date, away from all things familiar, alone, not even the dog, alone, so you can simply observe. They can't do that. I mean, they can and they do, and I have to encourage them to do it, and they eventually do it, but it's so hard. Why is it hard? Because they have a to-do list. They're highly functional people. And the idea of playing hooky is what they were told not to do. What's next? Especially these kids who are 18 and 22. These are the most highly functioning zombies I've ever met. I love them. And we have to say, let's go. Now it's your time. Do what you want. Bill Murray said, when you become an adult, you get to pick your diversions. Might as well pick them carefully. Bill Murray, who arrived on the scene with Saturday Night Live and Caddyshack and moves into Lost in Translation and epic movies. And those of us who've watched his career have thought, oh, I guess he's serious, isn't he? He started to pick his diversions. How wonderful is that? The timeout's difficult, but we have to get out. We have to go into the woods like our friends on F Troop used to go into the woods. They were always looking for this Indian tribe. They were always, I guess, first Americans. They were looking for the Fagawi. And these 2 guys would always get lost, and they would say, "Where the Fagawi?" Right? We remember this. Where the Fagawi? Where are the Fagawi? Unbelievable that they got this through the censors. This was one of the all-time great moments in television, and it was a moment that you could have decided to turn off the television forever because you've now seen the best it would ever get. This was it. You every day go out and look for the Fagawi. And you know you found them when you don't know. That's what we're trying to achieve. My mother plays cards. She plays bridge with her friends. This is not an actual photo. But this is the sort of attention I get when I walk into the home and say, "Hi, Mom," if she's there, and "Hi, Mom." And when I walk in, I say, "Hello, ladies." I've known these ladies all my life, I'm happy to say, and some of them are like ants, those ants, and you want to say hi to the ants, and it's like this. They don't look up. And it wasn't until preparing this presentation that I realized just what was going on. I was taking it personally. I thought it was about me. It's never about you. It's never about me. It's because their minds are working. Bridge is apparently very difficult. I didn't know this. And they are concentrating on the cards. And if they so much as say, "Nice to see you again," oh my, what did I forget? They're working their brains. They're exercising, and I have to respect that, even though it's hurtful. But I'm not bitter. What games can you play? Bridge? Absolutely. The New York Times crossword puzzle. This is good exercise. But what were we thinking? Louis, read the paper. Don't mess around with the comics. Don't mess around with the comics. Max Inc., my cartoonist friend, is here. Don't mess around with the comics. Read the news. If you must, the sports. I don't understand why we have a sports section. It's not really relevant. Why isn't there a creativity section? Why isn't there a section about Frank Lloyd Wright? Why is he not my hero rather than somebody who can swing something? This is the newspaper's way of saying, let's get you to write something. Let's get you to work. And I'm very partial to the New York Times. Monday, it's easy. You can do it. Call me if you need help. By Wednesday, you got to pay the 50 cents per word to get the answers. But they publish it the next day. This is a great time. But above this is even better. Above this is something called Ken. It's not Sudoku. Sudoku, my brother-in-law, who's a very accomplished Sudoku player, says they're not really numbers. They could be anything. They could be brand names of cars, he says, because there's no mathematics. They're just symbols that can't repeat. But Ken, the puzzle that makes you smarter, from the Japanese, the people who brought you this, and everything else. They say Ken is the way to make your brain smarter. I love it. You can find a book at Barnes & Noble or your other bookstore that starts very easy. The numbers can't repeat, but it's really fun. 16x has got to be 4, 4, and 1. But I'm not going to, just work with that. During the break, we can go through a Ken session. But this is available to you, and it's fun. And I sit down and do Ken because it's easy, nearly free, and only takes 5 minutes a day. For me, this is something I do every day as creative fitness. I asked our son, what should we do? What should I recommend? What should we suggest for creativity? He said, cranium crackers. These are books you can buy. A friend of mine had a son who was in the Columbus Dispatch, featured in a profile because he had scored the perfect score on the SATs. I'm not one of those nudgy parents, but I am curious as to how someone gets himself in that status. So I called her up. I barely knew her, but I'd met her once at a client. I said, can we talk about this? This is a great, what'd you do? We went to lunch, and she said, I left cranium crackers all over the house. Never told our son to do them. I just left them everywhere. And he picked them up. And he started to play with them, and basically they're filled with SAT questions, which are fun if you're not taking the SAT. Your whole future doesn't depend on it, and there aren't circles with, number 2 pencils. It's actually pretty fun to take the SAT. Go figure. And so, again, at 1 o'clock this afternoon, we'll talk about, what do we do next? Well, we have to imagine, what do we want to be doing? And then back up from there, what are the obstacles to doing that? And then back up from there, how can we overcome those obstacles by surrounding ourselves with those people, those resources, the time to get it done? We're still building your museum. I want you to know that. Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh helps us find time even when we don't have a moment. We always have a moment. There is the story that he's a Buddhist monk, one of my teachers. I'm not Buddhist. I think I'm Jew-boo. I don't know. I actually, lately, because of my experience at Capitol, which was Lutheran founded, I think I might be a Jew-boo-loo. And Jabulaka for the Catholics, just because it's fun to end with the K sound. Every tradition offers something, and the Buddhists offer this wonderful way of embracing our creativity. They know something. They are so good at this. They know something that's so hard to do. And what they know is the story is this. The student goes to the master and says, Master, I've been meditating now for an hour a day. And the master says, that's not enough. Come back when you're doing more. And the student comes back. I'm meditating for 2 hours a day. That's not enough. Come back when more. And he comes back 3, 4, 5 hours. And the master says, that's not enough. You need to be meditating all the time. Well, wait, our understanding of meditation is sitting cross-legged, uncomfortably, in silence. And that's not the vision of meditation from Thich Nhat Hanh and some of these other masters. He says it this way, simply to harness your breath, simply to think about your breath. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. You can play the home version now. Right? Even as you hear my words, you're thinking to yourself, inhale and exhale. Or maybe you're thinking other words. You could attach other words to it. You could attach to every inhale curiosity, and to every exhale creativity. Breathing in with curiosity and out with creativity. This sounds terribly distracting, but I know you're distracted already. And that's the lesson. The lesson is we're already distracted. Here we are in the museum. The smell of the new museum keeps distracting us. The lights, the artificial. I need to take notes in the dark. What's in the box lunch? Will it be a big box or a little box? Will it be full with what I like? What's in the box lunch? This is what I'm thinking. There's always something else we're thinking. And the lesson is if you're going to be distracted, you might as well be distracted by your breath. That way, it's not too important, and you'll be focused mainly on what's at hand. Not too important. The air we're breathing is the same air that's always been here. Mozart breathed this air. When he was my age, he'd been dead for 15 years. Don't think that with every thought, every breath. That would be... I don't know. The lesson, I think, is not that we're breathing air, but air is breathing us. We're the flowers in the field. Here's a way to remember how to breathe. It's a short poem that Thich Nhat Hanh wrote that I particularly love. I've probably told you this before. I say this everywhere I go. It's 4 lines. It doesn't rhyme. I'm sorry. Here it is. Breathing in, I relax my shoulders. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, this is a wonderful moment. That's the whole poem. Breathing in, I relax my shoulders. You can do this. Breathing out, I smile. Not the raving smile of the scary man on the street, but the Mona Lisa smile, Buddha's smile, Thich Nhat Hanh smile, the one that says, I think I know. I think I know something. I've got a secret. Maybe it's just that I'm breathing. Great. Breathing in, I relax my shoulders. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment simply states that this is where we live. We think about the future and we eat broccoli for a happier time in the future. And Daniel Gilbert, who writes Stumbling on Happiness, he teaches happiness at Harvard. I hope he's happy, right? He says much of our lack of happiness is that we have deferred happiness till later. As Sri Kumar Rao says, and I'll put these links on my page so you can find these, he says, we have spent all our lives learning how not to be happy. How we will be happy if we get this. We'll be happy if we do that. We'll be happy if we be this. No, we're happy now. Dwelling in the present moment, this is a wonderful moment. The last line simply says, this too is a wonderful moment. And if you can imagine this 4-line poem, as you're driving your car, you'll drive better. I've seen how you drive. You're not breathing. You'll smile more. You'll arrive relaxed. Your life will be better. You can interrupt your entire day with this poem. Interrupt your Saturday night. This Saturday night, feed your soul. This is the next part of your curriculum, I guess, if I'm allowed. Feed your soul. Available Light Theater Company is going to stand up and address this concern that Mother Teresa once famously said. She said that in our country, in her nation, she said, we face a famine of the body. In your country, you face a famine of the soul. Feed that famine. Feed your soul. And we're going to try to figure out in one evening's amount of enjoyment how to do that. I asked our daughter, what should we do? What should we express? What should people do? And she said, well, you should tell them to go to the museum. I mean, this is what she said. I don't recall whether she knew this was going to be at the museum. How awkward is that? It is at the museum. She said, then what are you talking about? Right? This is like preaching in church. They already get it. This is just go to the museum. This is the place we can go to see other people's creative stories. And because we're watching it in a static way, in a good static way, we get to really think about it. The R. Crumb exhibition upstairs, the presentation of Genesis in his cartoon comic way, brilliant, fabulous, gritty, real. How wonderful to take an old text, a metaphor if you like, truth if you like, and to have it presented in a new voice is really wonderful. This is the building where so much has happened for my life. What turned me on happened in this building with our children young and with me trying to be young again because I heard this. Someone said on NPR, which is what I say if I want people to believe me. Unless it's other people. If it's other people, I say Fox. But we can't make our children be more like us. But we can make ourselves more like our children. And this is the sort of building where that happens quite naturally, quite organically. I don't know if we delivered on our promise, this idea to talk about how the brain works. But we do have a few moments for one of you to rescue me. And I think we have microphones, or I'll come and embrace you. Well, that would be awkward. I'd like to know other suggestions, ideas that you would have. Oh, the other thing our daughter said was, change what's on your iPod. She knows that the last band I've ever heard of was Steely Dan. And they're great, but this is a problem. Time for something new. So, could we bring lights up? Do we have lights in this auditorium? Not those ones. Those ones. Thank you so much. No, not those ones. Not the automobile headlights. Great, thank you. Who will join me just by suggesting? Perfect. Who can suggest? Please. Oh, just shielding from the light. I can make you raise your hands. What's it? Yes, please. A walk in the woods is always inspiring. Yarmer Steiner, one of the planners of Easton, said, we did a lot of research into what people think about spaces. It's very like it, love it. However, it's very heavily designed. It's very thoughtful. And he said at the speech that he gave, I think at the Columbus Metropolitan Club, he said, if you ask people to describe the most beautiful place they've ever been, if you say, close your eyes and think of the most beautiful place you've ever been, he said 9 out of 10 people will imagine something outside. Our own structures, our cathedrals and our art museums are wonderful structures, but nothing beats Mother Nature. Walking outside, yes, please.
Doing normal tasks in a different way.
At the beginning of one of Thich Nhat Hanh's books, the preface is written by someone named Moby. He describes this scene where Thich Nhat Hanh's coming to dinner. Oh, you think Martha Stewart's coming to dinner has a problem? Thich Nhat Hanh's coming to dinner. Yeah. Moby's looking for the spoon. He can't find the wooden spoon. He's trying to stir the rice or something. He can't find the wooden spoon. He describes himself doing this. And Thich Nhat Hanh says, what are you looking for? I'm looking for the spoon. I'm looking for the wooden spoon. I don't know where I put it. I'm looking for the spoon. And Thich Nhat Hanh says, Moby is not looking for the spoon. Moby is looking for Moby. I don't know what it means. Right? I don't know what it means. I can't explain this, but there's something really beautiful about this in that if we wash dishes, Thich Nhat Hanh teaches, not to be done with the dishes. If we wash dishes, because dishes and washing thereof is in and of itself part of life and something interesting and something that can be done well, then we are actually not deferring our lives to a future point, but we're living right now. We have this opportunity to engage now in what we're doing. What I do when I'm washing dishes is I imagine I'm washing dishes for the Queen or in the White House. You can pick your administration, doesn't matter. I wash them because the people that work in those places, they work because they're really proud to wash that dish. And we think of dishwashing and housekeeping and toilet cleaning as something that, oh, well, I want to get past this. I got news for you. You're going to spend a certain amount of your life doing this. You might as well be engaged and love it. As the comment says, in the normal passage of life, because that is where we live most of our lives. Other ideas. This is great. You in the back. Did you want to say something? No. Okay. Hi. Yes, please.
I carry a notebook in my purse, or it's morphed into a recorder because my thoughts sometimes come to me while I'm driving and writing and driving here.
Please stop doing that. So the comment was that I carry a recording device with me because I'm driving, I'm writing, I'm trying to remember. Yes. Here's what I've done these last couple of weeks. I just learned this a couple of weeks ago, that after a meeting where I want to remember Louie's kids' names, Louise, I want to remember Louise's names. I get in my car and I drive home to write it down, or to maybe I think suddenly I will remember. Suddenly my powers of memory are going to work for me. They don't. I keep index cards now in my car, and I write down that before I leave the meeting. It's hot. I want to turn on the AC in the car, but I don't because I care. But I write it down. To record things is, we spend in getting things done. David Allen, the great time management book that's used by the Department of Defense and all kinds of people. This is a great book, Getting Things Done. It's on the list of the books I'll give you at the end of the day. He says that we spend so much of our brains trying to remember things. Think of your computer screen. Just open up one application, work on that, remember nothing. And he teaches methods for how to record everything so that we don't spend any time trying to remember. You wanted to say something. Switch-handedness for a day. Switch-handedness for days. I like to play this game, and this is excellent. Live life as if. You get to pick as if what? Live life as if, for a day, for an hour, for a week, as if laryngitis, as if you're left-handed versus right, or right versus left. Just to find out, just to awaken yourself. When I took Tai Chi and learned how to do the motions, a little slower, I realized that everything I do is Tai Chi. That getting into the car is actually this highly choreographed move that's always exactly the same, with a flip of that, and in, and this, and this, and a sigh. I couldn't believe I was this robot doing the same thing over and over again. There are these opportunities to live life as if. The one I did is I lived life as if just for a week, if I broke a law, any law, I would receive capital punishment. Jaywalking, littering, and then I decided speeding. I hear you. I raced you here. I know what you mean. And then I thought, I can do that. But then I decided to add all religious law. And not just my religion, but the ones I don't know. It was a really uncomfortable week. I don't recommend that. I think we have time for one more idea, but we never... Yes, please.
Mo Willems is a children's book author and illustrator who wrote Novel Bunny and lots of stuff. And he said everybody should draw. And sometimes it's hard to think of what to draw. So just to get together with your friends or family and come up with something stupid, and everybody draw their own version of it.
Nice.
A turtle in a hat shop.
Wonderful.
And everybody do it, and then look at each other's pictures and see how different they are.
Is the name Mo Williams? Mo Willems. We'll put that on the list. Describes this idea of get together with friends and draw something. And if you don't know what to draw, because the idea is to draw something every day, well then get together, decide on something to draw them and laugh at them. If this is difficult for you, I've done this. For several years, I drew a self-portrait. Who doesn't have a mirror? Get some charcoal and a big piece of paper and try. And I guarantee there is some curve, there is some part of your face that you are very familiar with. We spend far too much of our lives this far from a mirror. It's looking at the blemishes and wondering if other people see them. You know this thing in your face. And you can draw a self-portrait in no time. And it's really fun. And you can do it. I have to stop. We have a break. Here's the deal. You get a potty break. I say that because a lot of people your last time at the museum might have been on a big yellow bus. I don't know. I hope not. we're going to have a break, and then we're going to be back in here. We're going to meet meet Liz Lessner and Pete Scantlin to talk about ingenuity in practice. I'll interview a couple of people and try and get to figure out what do they do to be creative. And you can ask them questions too. See you soon. Thank you. Thank you.